All right. So we had last week off from the meetings. And I think the one update that I've seen, at least real brief, is that we do have a containers repo created. I haven't yet heard from the person on my team that's working on container work. He's been on vacation for 2 weeks, so I expect this week they'll hopefully get going and have some content up there to review. It looks like there is no branches. There's just the main branch with a README commit right now, so no one's committed anything. Any opens that anyone wants to bring up? Okay. I mean, the only other thing I can say is I have not seen any replies. I'll have to go look at the mailing list again now, but any replies around tool chain tag ownership? I think the goal was to target after the stable tag, and that tag should be coming out, within the next week. So if people here, or if you know others that find a tool chain very important to them, please make sure they speak up. I guess next week I'll try to pull together a list, and we can go over the list to see what's proposed to get cut. The last thing I do have one thing I don't know if anyone has seen, but we are seeing in the CI system where failures are getting masked. They're actually continuing. It can't identify what change has caused this or how long it's been happening, but it does seem like the compiler tool chains are returning an error. We've seen this on GCC and on VS, are returning an error for a compiler or linker problem. And the build is continuing. It's just ignoring that and continuing on. On product builds, this usually gets caught because usually you need that file. You need that thing to be linked. But in CI, it does not catch it because we aren't doing an FDF and we aren't building firmware volumes. I don't know if anyone has seen that or is aware of that problem.
So the compile or link step that's failing, it's actually being run from a make file, right?
Yes.
So that would be a case where the invocation of the make file by the build tools is not propagating the error back to the main script that's running that would notice the error.
That's what it seems like.
Okay.
And it has worked in the past. I haven't quite identified when this stopped working. We're just getting reports now over the last like 3 weeks, but I can't guarantee that I didn't see any changes that would have caused this in recent time. But those are when they started getting noticing. So CI gets impacted as well as a partial or incremental rebuild, because sometimes that module you already have compiled and then you make a change which breaks, but nobody notices, and then you build a firmware volume with the old image rather than the new.
Right. And are we seeing this with developer local builds as well, or just inside of the CI agents?
Both.
Okay.
Now, to be clear, since it's coming from my team, we all use a local environment that pretty much matches the CI environment, right? So we don't use the batch file and some of the other ways to invoke things. So that's kind of expected. But I don't know if others would see this if they launched, build directly. But there's no indication that it should be coming from the PyTools, which wraps that part of the process.
Right. So I guess the key is to come up with a test case that reproduces the issue, and then we can then have everybody jump in on that.
Yep. Yeah, if no one else has seen this or noticed, we'll keep going until we get a test case that's reliable. Okay, one more topic worth bringing up, sorry. The spell checker. We noticed some problems with the spell checker the last couple of weeks. I have no idea why a very commonly used spell checker is so bad or had so many problems, probably still does. So with a newer version of the spell checker, which we were automatically incrementing the spell checker, we caught a lot of new words, and a lot of those words were incorrectly spelled. You know, I don't know of a better spell checker for code. If someone does know of one, that would be great. We took this from the same one that is used for the VS Code plugins. But like I said, it's kind of unfortunate that they've had so many new versions of the spell checker that find the words, and there hasn't even been a good reason. Like they're just literally words. They're not like compound words. They're not words that are hidden away in something else. They're literally just words that were sitting there, spelled wrong. So that created some noise on the list. There was a few comments around whether some package maintainers actually value the spell checker. I guess I'm curious here on this team if people think that the spell checker is not worth adding. I think from our perspective, it's one of those baseline things that every project should be doing regardless. And you know, it's worth having, and we should be getting all packages there. But I'm curious if there's a different opinion.
I agree it's valuable, Sean, to have especially the comments with proper spelling. Grammar checking is something we don't have either, but making so that our documentation within the code has proper spelling and grammar, it improves the documentation of the code. So I think it has great value there. I'm curious, you mentioned that it has some issues where it was not working correctly. Do you have a couple examples of what it was doing?
There was just, you know how every once in a while, like we'll find a new version of CSpell, right? And we were not strongly versioning CSpell, so the CI system was just installing the latest Node.js version of CSpell. And every once in a while, that will just bring down the CI system because it will start identifying new words or new things. That happened in a large number of words got identified. Many of them were incorrectly spelled and were, like I said, were not any kind of weird decorated word or hidden away or anything like that. So I have no reason to understand why they weren't caught before and why they were just caught now. But that did make some noise on the mailing list.
So yeah, for me, even more important than the code documentation spelling is in the .uni files that display information to the user. Because I've certainly fixed some spelling mistakes in there as well in the past.
Okay, are we currently testing those? Do you know?
I don't know.
I think we are, but I don't know for sure either. Okay, I'll look.
And the spell checker does not check any spellings of like C code, like variable names and things like that, correct?
Oh, it does.
Oh, it does. Okay.
That was the benefit of this spell checker, right? It is a code spell checker. It understands syntax to some extent. And like I said, it's the one that's used with VS Code. So we kind of hoped that it was of high quality. I have not been able to find an easy one that already has this functionality built in.
Right. Yeah, the other thing I noticed about the recent patch that not only locked the version, it also updated the default dictionary of exceptions, right?
Yep.
So I guess how do we, what's other than a code review, is that the only way that we approve new exceptions? I should say global exceptions, because we also have the ability to do exceptions at the package scope too, right?
Yeah, they're both done through the mailing list submitting a patch, right? Yeah.
Okay. I know we have a goal that we'd like to see the package scoped exceptions reduced over time as we fix things. Do you think is our goal to get to a single global set of exceptions such that the package exceptions trend to zero?
The way we've looked at it is if the word is really unique to your package, sometimes we've seen like register definition names and things like that we don't expect to be broadly across the code base. We've put those into the package. The broad ones, the ones in the base file, we think are, common to, our EDK2 environment and our projects there. So I think there's probably room for both always, but I think, yes, we would like to see it trend to a smaller list.
Okay, thanks. And I know that there've been some problems with the installation time sometimes of CSpell. Did that track specific versions, or and do you think that locking in on a specific version and only updating to a new specific version as part of a code review update tools in the future, do you think that's going to alleviate some of the long installation times of CSpell?
I don't know if we know. We were trying to look into whether CSpell itself strongly versioned so that, as you can imagine, with any node project, like the versions and the dependencies swell as you go out. I don't think we ever got the answer whether CSpell locks all of its versions. I think the hope is that they do. And so that would mean that we wouldn't be pulling in any new versions. So if we truly were impacted by some sort of version hijacking that did Bitcoin mining, then in theory, we shouldn't be getting version hijacked because we should be using known good versions or the same versions at least every time.
Okay. So then we can do an evaluation of an updated version if we want to move forward and then make sure that looks sane before we commit to the new version.
Yep.
Okay.
And also, we did dig deep enough into the CSpell to see that on their new every version they release, they do recreate the dictionaries. I think the dictionary creation process is some kind of weird evaluate a bunch of known good text and apply heuristics to it. So that is locked on a per version basis. So the dictionary should stay stable across versions as well. Or sorry, within a version as well.
Okay, so maybe we should put this on a future agenda topic, maybe 6 to 8 weeks out, to kind of see how we're doing relative to the past here, to see if things look like they're in a better state from a processing a number of CIs since across a 2-month period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think within any given year, we've kind of seen a problem or two crop up. So I think somewhere around a year time frame, we should see enough change that we would know whether things are getting better. Okay, those are the only topics I had. I don't see any other topics from the discussion. I still am putting the notes up there every week and uploading the recordings. So anyone have anything else before we close? Okay. Well, thanks everyone. And we'll talk next week. Or I guess next week is a US holiday. So 2 weeks. Does that work for everyone, or do people want to meet?
I think we can skip a week, Sean.
Yep.
I think
Sounds
if
good.
somebody has an issue, we can always reach out through the mailing list.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.